Tonight we have a special interview here before the podcast. I'm joined by Tommy Tallarico, video game composer extraordinaire and the co-founder and creator of Video Games Live. So I wanted to give him a few minutes tonight to talk about it. He's got a couple things going on. Well, a lot more than a couple things, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So just to give people kind of some background information, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give people some background.
Yeah, well, I've been a video game composer for over 25 years. I've worked on over 300 video games, which is in the Guinness Book of World Records. Is the person who's worked on the most video games in their lifetime. My mother's very proud. And about 13 years ago, I started Video Games Live, the first world touring symphony show for video games. And we do about 30, 40 shows a year. In fact, we're in the Guinness Book for that as well. It's the longest running symphony tour. We just did our 300th show in Budapest, Hungary a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
And I also helped start the first video game news magazine television show called The Electric Playground in 1995, which is still running, and another TV show called Reviews on the Run.
Yes.
And
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day here in the U.S. it was called. And we did that. We started that in like 95, and I was on that till about 2007 until I just couldn't do it anymore because of Video Games Live was all over the place. But that's me.
Yeah, that's where I remember first seeing you was on that show. You were always very harsh on games, so I always thought it was interesting to see that.
I definitely played the bad cop.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember your co-host's name, but I do remember
Victor
he was
Lucas.
kind of the good cop. Yeah,
Victor
right.
Lucas, the goody two-shoes.
Yes, he was always the good cop, and you were always kind of the bad cop. I do remember that very specifically.
Yeah.
But so, tell us a little bit about how you got in the industry.
So when I turned 21, I grew up in Massachusetts. And so when I turned 21, I jumped in my car, left my parents crying on the doorstep, and just drove to California with no money, no job, no place to stay, no friends out there, nothing. And but if you want to be in the entertainment industry and you want to be a musician and stuff, that's where you go. So I showed up in California, and I was homeless. So the first 3 weeks I was there, I was sleeping under a pier at the beach. And but the very first day I got to California, I picked up a newspaper, and I got a job selling keyboards at a guitar center. And they said, "Yeah, sure, go. Show up tomorrow. You start tomorrow." So I showed up the next day, and this is 1990.
Right.
And back then, no one had video game T-shirts. They weren't like now. You see them all over the place. But back then, they were very rare. And one of the 3 T-shirts I brought along with me, because I just had a little 2-seater car, was a brand new system that had just come out in Japan called the TurboGrafx 16.
Oh.
And so I wore that T-shirt to work that first day at work. So I was in California 2 days. And the very first person who walked in happened to be a producer for Richard Branson's Virgin Companies, and they were starting a video game branch of Virgin right down the street. He saw my shirt. He's like, "Do you know about video games?" I'm like, "I know everything about video games." He's like, "Do you want a job?" I said, "Absolutely." So, So I was in California 3 days, and I was in the video game industry. I was hired as a games tester first, and then I would bug the vice president of the company every day. I said, "Please, if you ever need music, let me know. I'll do it for free. And if you don't like it, you don't have to use it, but just give me a chance." And one of the first games they were working on internally there was the original Prince of Persia with Jordan Mechner. And so that was the very first game I did the music for.
Very cool. Yeah, I do know when I was looking on our podcast, we often refer to I don't know if you got a chance to look at it, but there's a book out called Console Wars, and it's talking all about
Yeah, yeah.
the battle between Nintendo and Sega and how Sony got in the race and all that kind of stuff. And so it's been very interesting seeing some of that stuff like that. How it's a person wasn't really in the video game industry because there was no real industry at that time. It was kind of just blossoming. So
Yeah.
it's I
The
bet it's
Wild
quite
West.
yeah, exactly. I bet it's quite a different process now. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more corporate now for sure. Back then it was just you could talk your way into a job.
Yeah, and I
And no one really had experience, so, so
right. Yeah, I mean there was no
not too many people.
there was no experience to go off of. So yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started with the video games live. I mean, did all the game publishers think you were crazy?
Absolutely, they still do. Yeah, so I mean, the reason I created Video Games Live is I wanted to prove to the world how culturally significant and artistic video games have become. And I also wanted to help usher in a whole new generation of young people to appreciate an orchestra and a symphony and the arts. And so, yeah, I wanted to create a show for everybody. No, that not just for hardcore gamers, but anyone at all. And that's why the video screens and the lasers and the special effects and the rock and roll lighting and the stage show production and interactive elements with the crowd and the humor and the way we present the show, all that stuff is important to bring in a broader, wider audience. It's not just some traditional symphonic show, which other companies are out there doing stuff like that. That's more traditional.
Right.
Final Fantasy,
Hmm.
Zelda, Pokemon, stuff like that. But our show is always kind of a little bit of rock and roll. Actually, a
Definitely.
lot of rock and roll.
Yeah, I met you in Nashville 2013, and then last year I did Final Fantasy, and it was a very different experience. It really depended on what you were looking for, because that was definitely more of a traditional,
Yeah.
symphony experience as opposed to video games live, which was
Yeah.
definitely not.
Yes, exactly, and both have their merits, but I think the reason that video games live is kind of the biggest and plays the most popular or whatever is because we kind of open it up to everyone.
Right.
It's not just for hardcore gamers, but it really is for everybody. It's for families. It's for people who know nothing at all about video games.
Right. Yeah. And I think you've talked about, I think it was in the video documentary in particular, you were talking about how a lot of times you'll get people coming up, parents in particular coming up after the show. They're like, I finally get it now.
Yes, exactly, and that's the big goal. That was the big reason to start it in the first place.
Right. So how many segments have you gotten into video games live now?
130.
Up to
And
130.
yeah, and we can only play about 20 of them a night. So if you can imagine, yeah, it's putting together a set list. The way I do it now is I just go on Facebook. I create a Facebook events page for whatever city or country we're playing in, and I go, okay, everyone, tell us what you want to hear. And and then of course, I always balance out the set list because I always want to represent all the different platforms. Nintendo's, Sony, Microsoft, and PC, and the Game Boy portables. I want to represent, AAA titles, but also represent, some indie games or whatever as well. I want to make sure there's stuff in there from Japan and the U.S. and Europe, and
Hmm.
then also make a nice balance of just the music itself. I don't want 2.5 hours of just big, huge, bombastic choir in your face. Da, 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 there's got to be quiet, beautiful moments as well. There's got to be fun, happy moments. There's sad moments. There's big moments. There's adventurous moments. So all that kind of comes into play. And yeah, we have so much music now and segments that we're really able to accomplish that on a really big level every night.
Right. So you guys have anything new you're working on at the moment that you can talk about?
Yeah, we just finished Donkey Kong Country full symphony arrangement. We just finished another Zelda, really beautiful Zelda lullaby. thing. We're just starting Devil May Cry 4 and Phoenix Wright.
Oh, Phoenix
That
Wright.
yeah, that'll be coming in 2015. Working on Earthbound Mother, which is going to be pretty amazing. So yeah, lots of stuff.
Yeah, and I think I think
Katamari Damacy is another one we're getting.
right. Yeah, and I think on the Kickstarter page you had posted also Cave Story, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Cave Story. We started over the summer. We started playing that, and we want to put that on our next album as well. Yeah, a lot of the things I mentioned we're putting on the next album. Oh, we also just did this Final Fantasy VI opera remix, also with Jill Aversa and Andy Aversa. They're the folks who started some of the people who started OC Remix. And super talented songwriters and singers. So we have a Final Fantasy VI opera remix, we call it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you come back to Nashville, I definitely want to hear that if
Oh,
possible.
absolutely, absolutely. That'll be at
Because
the top.
that's one I've been begging. I begged both you and the guy with Final Fantasy to do that one. Unfortunately, it's like neither one of you could. But
Yeah, no, it's we do it in the show now. We just played it for the last two shows we did over the weekend in New York and Pennsylvania. We played it. Yeah, we play that most of the time now.
yeah. So let's talk a bit more about what have you been doing. This is something we ask generally every podcast. I mean, what have you been doing as of late? I know you. I think you just got back from international trip, right?
Yeah, we did 10 countries in 17 days in Europe. Everywhere from Budapest to Helsinki to Madrid, Spain, London, Paris, Stuttgart, Germany, Stockholm, Sweden. I mean, we were everywhere. The Netherlands. It was crazy, and uh, and then aside from that, of course, I launched the Kickstarter project right before I left on that tour because I wanted to promote it during the tour. And so our second Kickstarter project to fund our fourth album, Video Games Live Level 4, which just got funded earlier today. So with 4 days left. So that's pretty cool. And I'm also producing a big symphonic album with one of the biggest names in electronic music. The artist, he's called BT. And BT is the guy, if you look him up on Wikipedia, it'll blow your mind. I mean, he writes music with Sting and Peter Gabriel, and aside from his own stuff as well. But he's also a film composer. But he's the guy credited for creating trance music in the late 80s. And he's got 10 amazing, multi-platinum albums. And so we're kind of doing his greatest hits. No, I don't want to say greatest hits, but his because we're reimagining all of his most popular works. And so we're me and him are working together to create, an album where it's his best works and with reimagined and with a symphony added into it. So it's called Electronic Opus is the name of that. And we're also doing a Kickstarter for that as well, which is almost funded also. But and I'll be recording all of those in December. Over in Prague, we're recording both albums, Video Games Live Level 4 and Electronic Opus, and then mixing it all in January and releasing Video Games Live in February, and then Electronic Opus in March during Miami Music Week, which is the biggest EDM festival in the world, 3 million people in town for Miami, and we're the closing ceremony. So we're going to launch that tour, BT's Electronic Opus tour, at Miami Music Week, so the album will be released that night.
Yeah, and of course you're bouncing around time zones like there's no tomorrow as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'm currently in Toronto area right now, getting ready to leave for Brazil.
You're at least somewhat in the same time zone right now.
Yeah.
But so we brought up Kickstarter, and that's what I was about to go into here. I mean, how did you get the idea of doing a Kickstarter for Video Games Live Level 3 last year?
Well, none of the record companies believed in spending that much. It's very expensive to record, 200 of the, talented musicians, and in a, just like movie scores. When John Williams or Hans Zimmer, Danny Elfman, any of these guys, when they go down and record, an hour's worth of music for a movie score, it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes $1 million. And so it's not cheap, and no record company was going to spend that kind of money on just an album. And so I went to Kickstarter, went to the community, and you know figured let's give it a shot. It's going to be the only way we'll be able to do it, and we nailed it. Raised over $285,000 for level 3, and yeah, it's been amazing, and the album came out. I'm really happy with it. It came out on time, which
Yes.
is rare for any Kickstarter project, I suppose. But I wanted to make sure I came through and over delivered on everything, because the hope was that next year I'd do it again, kind of thing. In which here we are now, and we reached our goal, and now there'll be a 4th album. So yeah, I'm really happy with the Kickstarter community, and everybody being able to band together and help me promote the thing, because that's the thing. Without the audience, without the fans, without the community, it would have never made it. But people, I find, which is really cool about gamers, is that they're just as passionate about this stuff as I am, and always trying to promote it for us and help us out, which is amazing.
Yeah, and that's and that's what I was going to go into about the level 4 Kickstarter. Of course, if we hadn't crossed the goal this morning, but I saw the email update, and I'm like, oh great, now we can really focus on that, because it's really cool to see it done again. And if you guys haven't checked out the Kickstarter page, I definitely encourage you to do so, because if you look, he has actually the budget laid out.
Yeah.
It's all there. It's not like, oh, where is my money going? He has it all branched out into exactly what's going where and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's definitely, you can tell he knows what he's doing.
Well,
So
and the other thing too is that the great thing about Kickstarter, that it's not like we're just selling an album for $10 on iTunes, and
right,
that's you spend $10, you get an album. What Kickstarter enables me to do is give away a ton of stuff that normally people wouldn't have, or wouldn't buy, or wouldn't sell, or whatever. So, and my whole thing is, anyone who donates and pledges to our to the project, I give back at least quadruple the amount. So if you're pledging $25, you're getting $100 worth of stuff. The value, even at the lowest level at $10, we give you the album in digital format, and we give you a second album. Just a bonus. We call it bonus round, which is some of the greatest video game composers from around the world giving us their personal tracks that aren't from video games, and things like that. So that's just like at the $10, and at $25 we throw in 2 more albums, including a Chrono Trigger Chrono Cross piano arrangement album, a Streets of
Austin
Rage
Wintory.
remix. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did see that Boston Wintery. I personally was rooting for the Final Fantasy VI, of course, but that was definitely a close
That's
second on my list.
next year.
Next year, hopefully. But yeah, I'm excited to see that, because I got to meet him at one point, and it was really an interesting conversation. So
Yeah,
and
Austin's
he
amazing.
he does some good stuff.
Yeah.
So what are some segments that you've wanted to add to Video Games Live but just haven't been able to?
Uh, well, Earthbound's one of them. Legend and Secret of Mana, Katamari Damacy. So all the ones that are on my list to do next year.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so we got our first 10,000 backer on Video Games Live Level 4 over this past weekend. And one of the one of the rewards for level 4 for $10,000 tier is that you pick and create a segment in the show and create it with me. And the segment that the person picked is Legend of Ys.
Ah,
So that'll be cool.
that'll be
Working
very
on that.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one doesn't get a lot of love. I just feel like it's more of a Japanese game to a lot of people, and so I don't hear a lot of conversation about it. But I've definitely enjoyed what I got to play of it.
Yeah, totally.
So, I know it's a sad day to say, but it looks like G4 is officially going to be shutting down. They haven't really had any new content in quite a while now, but
G4 officially shut down, I think, about 10 years ago.
well, yes, I know, but they went to G4 Tech TV, and now the actual the channel is not going to be even turned into something else. It's just going away. Period.
Yeah, well, it should have gone away a long
Oh,
time.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. I know.
It's a shame. I mean,
It
it's a
is.
shame because it could have been great. And they just put a lot of people in charge that didn't know what the hell they were doing. They weren't gamers. They too many cheesy scripts, and yeah, it was just. I mean, I sat in meetings like pulling my hair out, going like, people have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, so with that being said, the point I was actually going for. So, can you give us a fondest memory or a really funny story from those days?
Uh, Gosh, it's funny because we've been doing the TV show since 1995, and G4 started, I think, around 2002 or 2003. So we had already been, popular and going. We were the only ones doing a TV show really back then. We were the first, for sure, news magazine show,
Right.
and then so we were the only ones that were hired that weren't internal at G4. All the G4 television shows came out of the G4 studio in LA, except for our two shows. Ours were being done outside. So we weren't really part of the G4 family because we had, our show was being aired all over the world, all of Canada, Australia, all over Europe. So G4 was just kind of the distributor of our shows in the US. But that being said, I always had fun when we'd go in the studio. We'd be co-hosts on G4TV.com with Tina and Laura and Scott. And that was always fun. Those guys were really great. I really liked that show a lot. They take calls from people live and everything, and that was probably my aside from our shows, my favorite shows that we weren't involved with.
Yeah.
And so, but I wasn't really. Again, we weren't really involved too much with G4. We just kind of did our own thing, luckily.
Gotcha. Yeah, that definitely kept you out of some of the craziness for a little while, I'm sure.
I mean, the thing that kind of pissed us off is that they would always switch our time slot around. So no one ever really people liked our show, but it was never. It was like, okay, here's Wednesdays at 8 o'clock at night, Electric Playground, and then Judgment Day is going to be on. They always switched us around, and so it's like no one ever got in the groove. And this is before people had TiVos and stuff, so you had to know when the damn show was on in order to watch the thing. And they never were consistent with that. It always annoyed us.
Yeah, and the on-screen schedules and all that weren't quite as popular at that point either, so that just made it more fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were the top-rated show on the network, and which was a miracle because we were all over the place.
Oh yeah, so the last time I got to do an interview with you, you said something very funny when we were talking about Square Enix and Nobuo Uematsu. So when you went to ask Square Enix about getting some Final Fantasy stuff in video games live, and you mentioned Nobuo Uematsu.
Yeah, they said, "Who's that?"
Yeah.
That was Square Enix in the U.S. They had no idea who Nobu was. Again, this is, we're talking 2000. That would have been 2002.
Yeah.
2001, 2002. Yeah, something like that. And it was 2002. And yeah, they had no idea. Yeah, they literally why would anyone want to listen to music from a video game. I don't get it. They're like, whoa, Nobuo Uematsu has a lot of fan followings over there. They're like, who?
Yeah, that would crack me up the first time, and it's still kind of funny when I just muse about it because it's.
I mean, they all know who he is now, but back
Yeah.
then it was they didn't even know in the U.S.
Well, I mean, at the time I was a bit younger, so he was one of the first composers I actually, started recognizing his name and sort of his music.
Him and Koji Kondo, right?
Exactly. Those are the two that definitely stuck out in my mind at that point, just because Koji Kondo with the themes he's got under his belt. I mean, it was kind of hard not to recognize him as well.
Zelda, Mario.
Yeah. So, is there something that you have always wanted to be asked, but nobody's ever asked it of you?
Not too many people ask me about my personal life, actually. Like, hobbies and things like that. I mean, I work a ton, but let me see. I've never talked about. Well, obviously, I travel all over the place, but so some hobbies I have is like photography, and I love baseball and the New York Yankees, and I cried when Derek Jeter retired this year. But but the I play backgammon. I'm a big backgammon player. Not a lot of people know that. There you go.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So if you're out in California and wandering around the local backgammon playing spots, and maybe you'll see Tommy Tallarico there.
Exactly.
But yeah, the baseball thing's surprising a little bit, just because I know you have so much going on. It's definitely a slower paced game. I'm a huge baseball fan, but
yeah.
Even with just my normal job and this and stuff like that, I know I just don't have as much time to keep up with it.
It really is a psychological game, though.
Yes.
It's a psychological game. Pitcher versus hitter. What's he going to throw me next? Is it going to be a curve or a slider?
Right.
That's it's always fascinated me.
Yeah, that's what I end up liking about it as well. But yeah, so Video Games Live Level 4 success. So maybe we'll be seeing Video Games Live Level 5 next year, and
hoping so.
Yeah, and like I say, hopefully I'll see you at some point back in Nashville.
Yeah, for sure. We got the best thing to do is to write the symphony an email.
Yeah,
seriously.
I've already gotten in touch with them. Like, hey, are you guys doing a video game concert next year?
Exactly. No, just tell them Video Games Live. Don't talk about any of the other ones.
Okay. I'll note that.
I'm just kidding.
I'll note that. I know.
No, the more that everybody is successful, the more game music is successful. So that's the main goal. So but seriously though, writing the symphonies, even a couple emails. Because no one's writing the symphonies going, hey, can you play more Mahler next month?
Yeah. I don't think
when are we
going to
get that?
For more Bach?
When are we going to get that Stravinsky thing I've been hoping for? So when 5 or 6 people write and say, hey, can you bring Video Games Live, this and that? I mean, it's worked. It's been so many times where we've played because 4 or 5 people have sent emails about our show.
Yeah, and so anything else you want to tell the listeners out there?
Just make sure to join us on Facebook. Make sure to check out the Kickstarter. And if you go to videogameslive.com, we have a mailing list. Sign up for that because what we do is whenever we have tickets, before they go on sale to the general public, we always email our folks first, and so you get the best seats and the best prices before anyone else. So you just put in your email and where you live, and we don't have like newsletters or we don't bug you. We just whenever we're coming to your town, we blast you out.
Yep, and I know you guys do a pretty good job on the prices as well, so that's definitely nice.
Yeah, and that's an important thing, and that's another big difference between Video Games Live and the other game concerts that are out there. My goal is to get this out to as many people as possible. My goal isn't to make money. It really isn't. I mean, I haven't taken a paycheck from Video Games Live in the 13 years since I created it. And so everything goes right back into the show. And And so, I want to see tickets start at $20, $25, and keep the ticket prices as low as possible. So, we don't charge for our meet and greets after the show, which again is rare among these video game concerts. It seems, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, I'm not interested in charging people $100 a ticket. I want as many people to see it as possible. Spread the word.
All right, guys. Well, that is our interview, and thanks for listening, and thank you, Tommy, for